Hey, good evening, folks. I'm Todd here with Taproot, along with my friend, Mr. Marshall Wilson. Marshall, how
Hi,
are you
y'all.
this evening?
Are you sure you're my friend?
I am your
A
friend.
while ago, this guy was picking on me, talking
Hey,
about how I wasn't worth talking to. I don't even know. But I'm glad to be here. I'm glad
what?
Todd's here. I'm glad y'all are here, and Todd's trying to tell me that he didn't say that.
Oh,
But anyway, thanks for listening in. Tonight we're gonna well today because you guys might be listening anytime, I guess, since this is recorded. But we're gonna talk about the consequences of elections. What was it our good friend Barry Sotero said a few years back, aka Barack Hussein Obama? He said elections have consequences, and he said it with a big old grin on his face. And
hmm.
I'm saying it tonight. Elections have consequences. So if we could, we'd like to talk about some of the consequences of our most recent presidential election. And I think we've got some good insights there. And Todd, go ahead and tell everybody why I'm wrong saying you don't want to talk to me.
Well, no comment.
Exactly. I hope y'all will excuse my voice tonight. I went to the inauguration and spent many hours standing out in the cold. And of course, you know how hard headed I am. My wife made it very clear to me that I needed to take my hat and gloves. And somehow I decided not to take my hat and gloves to DC. And it was cold. I tell you what, it was cold. And I came home and promptly got very sick for about 3 or 4 days. And I'm not sick anymore, but I've still got the last vestiges of the damage the sickness did to me. So be patient with me. And I appreciate y'all. Thanks for listening in. So, um,
So
Todd,
speak.
yeah, I
Go,
just
go
wanted
ahead.
to say that what is going on right now is what I expected to happen in 2017. This is what I thought was going to happen in 2017. And when it didn't happen, and we instead got mired in this morass of, deep state BS and the lunacy and everything, I thought, man, I really thought this guy was going to make some stuff happen, and it's just not happening. And so when he ran in 2020, I'm pretty sure that he won the general election. I'll go ahead and go on the record saying that I believe that's what happened. And I have good reason to believe it. And I'm not going to argue it right now because that's not what we're talking about. But I believe that the man won the election in 2020. And, I wanted him to be in office more than I wanted Joe Biden to be in office. But frankly, I was pretty disappointed that, all of the wonderful things I expected to happen in 2017 had not materialized. And then, of course, he comes back in 2024 for the election and, to go into office here in 2025. And I was thinking, well, I certainly don't want Kamala Harris in office. And apparently, he's the guy that the Republicans are going to bring forward, and that's fine, but I'm not excited about it. I was hoping that somebody who actually could get something done would be elected. And this guy has just been reaping. It's been amazing to see him swinging his blade. Um, anyway, so I
Well,
just
just
want to go on record right now as saying I am surprised, and a lot of you don't think I should be surprised, but see, I was expecting this in 2017,
yeah.
8 years ago, and now I tell you what, man, this is epic. This is something else. So anyway, go ahead, Todd. I'm sorry.
No, no, you're fine. It is. I agree with you. I think that we might make his new nickname the Reaper.
The
Uh,
Reaper. There you
yeah.
go.
But yeah, I was just listening earlier today, and I heard them say that the military had sent two airplane, and I don't know what type of airplane that they were on. I mean, it could have been a C-130, it could have been a C-17. I don't know how many people were on there, but they sent two plane loads of criminals back to Colombia,
Yeah.
and they refused
Yes.
them landing there, and they said, "We'll send our own planes to pick them up." I thought that was
Well, wait, wait,
funny.
wait. This is important though, the actual chain of events, because what really happened, and just kind of flesh out what you're saying here. We sent two planes down there. The president of Colombia said, "Oh no, we don't want these people, our own
Oh,
nationals, our own
you're right.
citizens. We will not take those back. Don't you dare send them to us." And then Trump was on the golf course, from what I understand, called the president of Colombia. And then a few minutes later, the president of Colombia said, all right, so not only are we going to accept our people back, but from now on, we'll be sending our own planes to get them. So it's at their expense now. We're not even paying for it anymore. Unbelievable. But what's even more interesting is some compelling and interesting and disappointing information came out shortly thereafter about the president of Colombia. I don't know if you're aware of that, but that's what happened. So all I can think is that that the Trump team brought some leverage to bear against the man, and the man jumped and said, "Yes, sir. Let me do what I got to do." So that was kind of fascinating to me. But it's important to note that he said, "You're not going to send these people here." And then Trump called him, and then he said, "Oh, listen, you don't have to send them. We'll come get those boogers. We'll bring them on home ourselves. We'll repatriate them at our expense." I think that's amazing.
Yep.
So, and the next issue I'd like to bring up, if that's okay, is he's gotten rid of all these inspectors general. And of course, everybody's going crazy about that. They're saying, what is it? Klobuchar said something along the lines of, excuse me, something along the lines of, I don't understand why he would want to do away with these people whose entire reason for existing, whose job is to make sure that we hunt out corruption. And of course, the answer to that is, well, if they're not only not hunting out corruption, but also facilitating corruption, then maybe they need to go away, which is exactly what's happening. And of course, that's a lot of what happens in general, not only in government but in society, when you have this concept of credentialism. So you've got someone who has a title and a name, right? And the title and the name are associated with something that should be true. And so therefore you must assume that whoever has that title and that name and that office, excuse me, it is true about them. And so they can do whatever the heck they want to do. And the assumption is always that they're actually doing what they're supposed to.
Bless you.
Thank you. And so when you get in a position where you presume that the guy with the credentials is actually doing what he's supposed to do, and you start thinking, therefore, whatever he's doing is what he's supposed to do, then you got this self-licking ice cream cone, like we used to say in the Army. And the idea is that especially if it's something like an IG, an inspector general, because they're supposed to have full freedom to move throughout the ranks and to go through the organization and root out corruption. Okay, well, if this is the guy you're counting on to root out the corruption, and he is himself corrupt, who's watching the watchers? Nobody.
Who's watching the watchers?
Okay, fine. Let's get rid of the watchers, because if nobody's watching the watchers, but we all assume that the watchers are watching everybody else, then nobody's watching everybody else either. So let's remove the guy that everybody assumes is watching everybody else. And now everybody's hopefully going to start watching everybody else, because there's nobody assigned to that job now. And I know that probably sounds like twisted logic, but if you work with me on it, I think you'll understand what I'm saying. So that kind of blew my mind. But, in 2016, he was elected. A big part of why he was elected is because he said he was going to diminish the government. And I was like, well, yeah, there we go. Let's make this happen. Here's a guy who gets it. And that's why I voted for Donald Trump in 2016. And then it didn't happen. And we spent more money. We went deeper into debt, and government actually continued to grow. And all I could think was, good Lord, what are we doing here? And now things are actually happening.
I think he vastly underestimated the size of the beast when he was in there the first time.
That's fair enough.
Yeah. But I think he learned a lot from that experience, and he's certainly come out swinging now. a lot of people were upset over Mike Johnson getting the Speaker of the House, and it was the evil you know versus the evil you don't know, I guess. But he
Yeah.
came
Well,
out to go ahead.
no, go ahead, please.
He came out today even and said, Colombia and all nations should be on notice. Congress is fully prepared to pass sanctions and any other measures against those that do not fully cooperate or follow through on requirements to accept their citizens who are illegally in the United States. President Trump is putting America first, just like he said he would, and Congress will implement policies that reinforce his agenda.
Well, that's good to hear because one of my biggest concerns sitting at the inauguration was that people in the crowd, and when I was waiting to get in, all the people out on the streets, it was like a carnival atmosphere. Everybody was really happy, and that's great. I was happy too. But some of the things I kept hearing were Daddy Trump, King Trump, that we're going to have a Trump dynasty, that, one of the Trump boys is going to be the next president. And then it'll be what's the younger guy's name?
Barron?
Barron. Barron Trump will be the next president after that. And I understand people are being goofy and they're joking around and stuff like that, but that's how ideas like that actually get spread.
I was going to say, I wouldn't say that all of the people saying that are being goofy. Some of them are serious.
There you go. I'm a little concerned about that, right? So I'm standing there. I'm thinking, look, I know that not everybody's a nerd like I do, who it's over here reads the Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire by Edward Gibbon, on a regular basis. But I'm a nerd, and I've done that. And look, the thing is that when Octavian, who became Caesar Augustus, when Octavian took the reins and the republic was falling, he didn't rebuild it as a republic. He didn't restore the republic. He began an empire on the rubble of the republic. And look, I'm all for countering the corruption and the forces that are destroying our republic. But I'd like to see the republic reformed, right? Renew the republic, restore the republic. That's what I want to see. And hearing people talk like that, what it indicated to me was that the people are ready for an empire. And there are a lot of people who are listening to me right now are going to go, look, you're overreacting, blah, blah, blah. Maybe. I certainly hope so. But the thing is, we the people need to be on guard against that. We need to be prepared to deal with that. And I'm saying that's Trump's intent. I don't believe that it is. What I'm saying is there are historic forces that come into play. And at a certain point, when things have reached a certain point, the government has become so corrupt that it's not possible to fix it in a Republican manner, that you actually have to have, to a certain extent, a dictator who will restore the government. But then at the point that you put it in the hands of a dictator, is it going to restore a republic? Probably not. So
how many dictators do you know through history that have restored anything? I mean, it's just like we've always said. Absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yeah. Power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And the reason is because absolute power is not accountable to anyone besides God. God will ultimately hold tyrants accountable. But, as for our grandchildren, they still have to live under the tyranny, right?
I would venture to say that most dictators have not felt that they were even accountable to God.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, who could possibly believe that there is an all-knowing, all-powerful God who is holy and just and righteous and then behave that way? You can't really believe that. Now, they'll invoke God's name, but then they think they're just, they're like magicians. They're using magic words to make people. Have you ever seen the Book of Eli?
Yes.
Okay, the character Gary Oldman plays, the guy who's in the little town, and the reason he wants the book, the Bible, The reason he wants the book is because he knows that the words in the book will make people do what he wants them to do.
Right.
That's the kind of thing I'm talking about here. But I was really concerned. I don't think it's Trump's intent to establish himself as an emperor or a dictator. I got to tell you what, though, it's got to be if the people rise up and demand it, it's going to take a George Washington to turn it down. George Washington turned down the crown when it was offered, but and of course we can discuss the ins and outs of that some other time. But the real thing is he a George Washington? Does Trump have that kind of integrity? Does he have that kind of humility? I don't know, but I don't like to count on other people to do what I believe is right. I'd prefer that we actually establish the system, maintain it, and hold each other accountable. Because I don't know if I could do it, right? It would be a tough sell. So what we need is someone who is strong enough to actually dismantle the corrupt system. And at the same time, when that system is diminished to the point that one man can actually hold the reins, choose to hand the reins over to the people. So it's really good to hear Mike Johnson saying that Congress is going to work with him, because what that means is he intends to work with Congress. And I sincerely hope that I'm hearing that correctly. That's incredibly important, because we are the sovereign power in the land, not the president, not the Congress.
That's right. And that goes kind of hand in hand with executive orders versus doing things by law.
Yes, that's exactly right. And so I sat there and watched him sign the first stack of executive orders. I was there, and I was thinking, okay, that's a great thing to do. I wish that we were using the right methodology to do it, because that is the secure and right path, right? A bunch of executive orders begins to look like tyranny. It really does. And as you know, when our governor, Jim Justice, was signing a bunch of executive orders here in West Virginia, I was one of the small handful of people who stood up and said, you don't reign, you don't rule via executive order. And you don't write executive orders that are addressed to the people. The people don't work for you. The executive order is supposed to be addressed to the executive branch, to executive branch members. As far as I can tell, most of the executive branch, the executive orders that I've read, the presidential executive orders that I've read over the past few days, have actually been directed to agencies and personnel within the executive branch, which is good. That's what they should be. Still, a stack of them is pretty scary. But I think that's mitigated by the fact that the first 100 or so were actually overturning Biden's executive orders.
Yep.
So an executive order saying this executive order is no longer in effect, that doesn't really give me the heebie-jeebies about tyranny. It actually looks like turning tyranny back. It looks like dismantling tyranny. And I'm okay with that.
Right. And I think in addition to that, I think the fact that he wanted to hit the ground running right from the start. So those things were important to get things in play. Like, for example, I've seen the Marines already deployed at the southern border. They're putting up barbed wire. They're getting the wall built. I mean, like the second day.
I mean, first of all, how far could those Marines possibly be from the border? They're at 29 Palms, right?
Right.
Put them in a city bus and drive them down there. I don't know if you know much about Ospreys. You seem to know quite a bit about military equipment. Those things are scary, man. I used to jump out of airplanes. And that's one I would like to jump out of if anybody ever put me on it. Those planes fall out of the sky.
Yep.
But, they've got VTOL, vertical takeoff off and landing, which sounds really cool and looks great in a Marvel movie. But just the mechanics involved there, I think the thing actually drops 22 feet every time you switch between vertical and horizontal movement.
Yeah.
And,
that airframe was one that they did have some problems with. I mean, it's very versatile. Of course, we had the Harrier jet, has been around for a long time, and that was very successful, especially in the Falkland Islands.
Because the Harrier's a jet.
Right.
It's turboprop.
Yep. Yeah, and a big old prop too. Yeah, I saw when Trump flew into California to check out the wildfire situation, and he got off of Air Force One at LAX, and they put him on Marine One, and he was escorted by Ospreys. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. Well, one of the things going on in California is that the mayor of LA is refusing to start cleanup because they have to have their special little team go in and check. And the president said, you know what, go ahead and start cleaning up because your people need you to do this.
Yep.
Start rebuilding your city. And she says, nah, I'm good. Okay, that's fine. I'm sorry, were you were expecting federal funds? Okay, well, federal funds come with federal oversight. You know, I used to be an emergency operations planner and ran exercises and ran actual operations in emergency operations. And I got to tell you something. When you accept money from somebody, they generally provide oversight. And if that's federal money or state money, you got to expect that government oversight. It always comes with a leash, you know.
Yeah.
So how about the DEI? You go off on the DEI. I know it's one of your favorite topics.
The DEI, I mean, that was one of his executive orders. He just shut that down. The federal government will not do anything with DEI anymore. We're not going to, we're going to do things by merit. Wow, what a novel idea. People's merit.
Democracy.
People's merit getting them into positions. Imagine that. Not the color of their skin, not their sex, not do they feel like a kitty cat today, whatever. Let's install litter boxes to make everyone happy.
I feel like an ogre today. How about that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, one of the things that really took me by surprise and probably shouldn't have, based on what's been going on in the military for the past few years, as you know, I retired in 2019, and an actual motivator for me to start thinking about retiring, it wasn't really even on my mind at the time. But I had for years had Psalm 144 verse 1 as the quote under my signature block on all of my military communications. That's a pretty standard thing, I mean, you got your standard signature block, S. Marshall Wilson, Major Infantry, and then under that you have the quote, and everybody used quotes. Well, Psalm 144:1 says, "Blessed be the Lord my rock, who trains my hands for combat and my fingers for war." I thought that was pretty appropriate for an infantry officer. But the brigade EO officer, who was a warrant officer, came to me and she had one of those little talks with me where she explained how hurtful the use of my verse was and how she had received complaints. And I said, complaints from whom? She says, well, I can't really tell you who it is because I know how you are and you'll go and confront them. And I said, I absolutely will. Who is it? She said, well, I've just gotten complaints. I said, have you gotten more than one complaint? I said, no, you've only gotten one complaint. And I'm guessing it's from you. And she goes, well, I said, so you're lodging your own complaints now so that you can then go and investigate, right? Well, sir, you have to understand. I said, no, I already understand. Here's the thing. It's staying, and you can deal with it. Have a nice day. She said, well, sir, there's going to be an investigation. I said, I know you're going to investigate because you dreamed all this up in the first place. You have a nice day. So anyway, I got a slap on the hand, and, not because I had the verse, but because the way I responded to the EO officer. And I was reminded that we were graded on our officer efficiency reports, not only on how we did our job, but on how well we did the EO part. And this was, 2018, I guess, when this happened. And I was like, I need to start looking at when I can retire. I need to get my paperwork together and figure out what day I can actually retire and get out of the Army. And honestly, that thought had never occurred to me before. Through combat, through some really crazy training, through some pretty horrific events, getting out had not occurred to me before. But I tell you what, on that day, I went, I don't belong here. This is not the kind of place they want people like me. It's probably time for me to start looking somewhere else. So, this whole DEI thing. Well, so the president, the commander in chief, everybody's boss in the entire U.S. military structure, right? Chosen by the people, for the people. We are the sovereign power in the land. We hire this guy. we say, be in charge of our military. And he goes to the military and he says, stop this DEI garbage. And what do senior military leaders do? Do they say, yes, sir, thank goodness, now we can focus on our mission? They did not. Did they say, okay, sir, we disagree with you, but we got to do our job, which is frankly what they would expect from their subordinates. If their subordinates disagree with them, they actually would expect them to keep their disagreement to themselves and just do what they're told. But even if they were the sort of commander who would allow, some feedback, the feedback they would expect is, well, sir, I don't really like it, but I'm going to go ahead and do what I'm told, right? What they did was they said, Roger that. Ha! And then they changed the names of their programs and continued them.
Yep.
I mean, as an Army officer, had my commander told me, hey, Wilson, stop doing this thing you're doing. And I said, Roger that, sir. And called it, instead of, card shuffling, I called it, hoop-de-doo. And if he said, hey, are you doing card shuffling anymore? And I said, no, sir, but we've got this new activity called hoop-de-doo. I would expect him to fire me on the spot, put me up on charges, and send me down the river or up the river. Up the river, I guess, is where I would go. But these guys think they're playing smart. They're in front of the whole world. We're all watching them.
Yep.
Do they not understand there are people in their commands who are receiving this guidance from them? Hey, change the name of this to this and keep doing it. Who are saying, you know what, the commander in chief said otherwise. You want me to follow your orders, but you won't follow his orders? Madness, utter madness. So I think he's going to sort that out too, which will be a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I don't remember what agency it was. Was it maybe the State Department who had a lady
Yes.
who was the director of DEI, and then they changed her title, left her on the website?
Yeah. Hey, what do you think about the WHO withdrawing from the WHO?
Yeah, I think that's fantastic.
Oh yeah.
And
So
frankly, I think we should get out of NATO as well.
Well, I think we absolutely need to be out of the UN, and I think that we need to withdraw from NATO, but I think we need to work our way out of NATO.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think we need to immediately just tell the UN to go find somewhere else to hang out.
Because we've been paying the lion's share of all the funds going into that agency forever.
Yeah.
So the other thing, I saw this too, and it was interesting, going back to DEI for a moment. I see Marco Rubio sent a cable to all U.S. embassies and consulates and said, you're banned from flying anything other than the American flag or flags to honor prisoners of war or wrongfully detained. No more LGBTQ, Pride, or Black Lives Matter flags. I mean, can you imagine flying those flags at a consulate?
Yes. Do you understand that I had a command post in Iraq, and I was not allowed to fly an American flag over it? Now, I did anyway.
Were they afraid it would offend someone?
I guess, but you can go into these countries where they do not look upon those things in a favorable light, and you're going to maintain your diplomatic relations by flying this flag in their face. Yeah. Why not? They do it to the American people, right?
Right.
Back to cutting the size of the federal workforce for a minute. What about all these people who simply said, you know what, I'm just not going to work? He said, we're not doing remote work anymore. You need to show up in your office. And they just said, no, thank you.
You're fired.
I mean, if your boss says, yes, I understand, you got a new boss. He shows up and says, I understand you worked under this policy before. I've changed the policy. I have the authority to do that. Just like the last guy had the authority to establish that policy, I have the authority to rescind that policy, and I have rescinded it. So here's what we're doing now. And, half your workforce just kind of flips you off. Okay, well, you have chosen to no longer be a part of the federal workforce anymore. Right. And that's brilliant to me, because what I would have done had I been in President Trump's position is that I would have gone in and I would have actually chosen positions to diminish, dismantle different departments, different offices, different specific functions. Would have been a lot of work to figure out what to get rid of. And then I would have had to defend each choice. All he says is, come back to work. And they say no. And he's like, you're fired. Yeah, brilliant, because, my way would have been more focused, but it would have taken forever and I would have not succeeded as well as he has in the actual mission, which is to diminish the federal workforce.
Yep. Yeah, I see the Department of Education announced that it had removed or archived hundreds of guidance documents, reporting and training materials, and it canceled contracts totaling more than $2.6 million for DEI training for staff, just for the Department of Education.
That's nothing. I wonder how much they've actually spent on it.
Yeah.
I think that $2.6 million they're offering up is just like it's a stalking horse. They're saying, hey, we've done what you told us to do. Here, look somewhere else now. We did what we were told. There's got to be more going on there. It's Department of Education.
Yep.
But yeah, dropping those troops on the border, that is the oath that a soldier takes, or a Marine takes, or a sailor takes, is to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America. It is not to go to foreign wars and foreign places and make them act the way that the government wants them to act. It is not to, believe it or not, it is not to defend U.S. interest in foreign nations. It is to secure the natural rights of the citizens of this country. And that begins maintaining the integrity of our borders.
Absolutely. Yeah. So going back to something we were talking about just a bit earlier to Colombia, and I meant to quote this here a second ago, but this was from September of 2023, just in, cocaine to overtake oil as Colombia's largest export. Okay. So regardless of legal or illegal status, the biggest export from Colombia to the United States in terms of monetary value is cocaine, and it's estimated with a street value of $150 billion annually. So, why don't we just boycott Colombia and not do any business with them? We can just say, hey, quit shipping your cocaine here. We're done.
That's a great idea. And you got to understand, this is actually a very complex issue that's tied into a lot of other complex issues, including the border. So frankly, what you've got here is you've got hardened terrorists who've been fighting in the Middle East, right?
Yep.
Who want to come and destroy America, but they need troops, and importing bunches and bunches of people from the Middle East is not going to work for them, because that would raise some flags, right? But we are allowing people from South and Central America to just come into the United States, and have been millions of them for years, right? Now, these are disaffected people. These are people who are unhappy. They've come to America for the American dream, and then the Americans treated them like cockroaches. I've literally heard people say this before. And keep in mind, I speak Spanish. So I've talked with people who are here illegally who have said, we came here just to be great Americans, and you treat us like cockroaches. I said, well, if you want to be great Americans, you need to behave like Americans and follow American law. Hey, there you go. And so anyway, so these people are unhappy. They're angry. They feel like they've been, stepped on by the American people, and they, a lot of them resent it and want to make us pay. Okay, so you've got the hardened terrorists who are able to build, plan, and execute terrorist operations, but they need foot soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
But who makes the connection between them? The cartels.
Cartels.
Yeah,
so that was going to. Oh, I'm sorry.
Cartels have the connections. They have the rat lines. They have the logistics lines. They have the money, and they actually are the go-between between these terrorists. These hardened terrorists who come over here and want to run terrorist operations within the United States, and the actual people they're recruiting to do the job. And so we, the American people who allow cocaine to be sold on our streets, are actually allowing American dollars to be invested in the cartels so they can then run these operations to destroy our country. It's amazing. It's amazing. It's got to end. And I tell you what, with all these people self-deporting right now, it looks like they're actually making some headway on it. The U.S.
Yes.
government.
So that's what I was going to say. How did you feel? We were talking about executive orders. How did you feel about the executive order to declare cartels as criminal organizations?
Man, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Not only that, but he declared a state of emergency on the border.
Right.
Stunning. You know, the fact that someone would actually take responsibility for acknowledging that this is an invasion, that it's a coordinated invasion, and that it's an attempt to destroy the United States of America and to damage the people of the United States of America.
Mm-hmm.
You know, any average American knows that's what's going on, unless they're completely deluded. But to have a politician actually stand up and say, you know what, this is what's going on. It's stunning. It gives me a lot of hope. Gives me a lot of hope.
Agreed.
Oh, and Homan. I mean, I know we've mentioned him a couple times, but
Yes.
and again, here we are in this position where I have to say, it's not the way I would prefer to see it done, but by God, it's got to happen. And I don't think it's going to happen any other way. A border czar. I don't like czars. That's not in the Constitution. It's not the way we're supposed to do things. But I'm convinced that we have devolved to the point where it's the only way we're going to get anything done. And it's my sincere hope that we will get these things done and then return to a Republican form of government. Republican, small r, constitutional republic, not Republican as in the Republican Party in charge of the government.
Yeah, Marshall, I've felt almost the same way about our federal government as I do our state government. I mean, both of them, the federal government doesn't have a super majority of Republicans, but we've had the majority, and nothing really gets done. I mean, and here in our state, we've had overwhelming Republican numbers in both houses, and
actually,
a Republican governor who,
he's
really,
more Republican than you are, Todd.
Oh, he just changed his uniform, Marshall.
No. He's more Republican than you are.
Oh, is he?
Republican doesn't mean what you think it means.
Oh, okay.
I mean, he's a member. He sends lots of money to candidates to support Republican candidates. He sends lots of money to the state executive committee.
Mm-hmm.
He shows up for the events and he shakes hands with people and he raises money.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's more Republican than you are.
Yeah.
But you have a set of principles that you associate with the Republican Party that they don't really, the Republican Party leadership in West Virginia doesn't really see as, an imperative. They just need to raise money and increase their power, increase their market share. But anyway, along with what you're saying, I kind of disagree. You said they don't get anything done. They get a lot done.
Well,
on things.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a Republican supermajority that took $290 million from some of the poorest people in the country, the people of West Virginia, and gave it to Bill Gates,
to wealthy people,
Chinese Communist Party.
Mm-hmm.
Those are our Republican leadership in West Virginia.
Hey, speaking of which, you know that they put in that the electric bus manufacturing plant here in Charleston, right? Did you know that that's already shut down?
Yes, I did. Go ahead.
No, yeah. I just wondered if you knew that.
I do, but our listeners might not know what's up with that.
Well, electric buses, first off, electric vehicles in general, don't perform too well in cold weather to begin with. Wouldn't be efficient on hills and mountains and those types of things. And
hey, do we have any of those in West Virginia?
No, it's all flat here. Mountain mama, come on. But yeah, so to put your kids on an electric bus that could catch fire, which, there have been lots of electric vehicles that have caught fire with the lithium batteries. They don't do good in cold weather. They're not good with hills, and they have a very limited range. So, man, if you're taking kids to like an away game for football or whatever, I don't know if they would be able to achieve that range. So
amazing. Well, back to Trump. I know that you and I have been deeply involved in West Virginia politics for a long time, but one of the things that we were talking about Tom Homan, who is the border czar, and
Mhm.
I've lodged my complaint about having a czar. But frankly, I believe that we have devolved as a nation to the point where we simply have to have these people who will take up the reins and make stuff happen. But my sincere hope and desire is to see these things as they shake out the corruption and as they dismantle the extraneous government. I'd like to see them evolve, to shift into restoring the republic. Because if we try to restore the republic just directly from where we are right now without having this dismantling, then we're going to still just end up with this big bloated, insane, tyrannical mess. But Mr. Homan is that dude's a warrior. If you paid attention to what he's doing, I mean,
Absolutely.
yeah. And you watch him in his confirmation hearing and in other discussions he has, and in the media and stuff like that. People will say the things that have been said for decades. Well, you got to care about people and stuff like that. And his responses are always direct to the core of the falsity of the false issue there. It's amazing. I mean, he just cuts straight to it. He says, not this, but that. What you're saying is not even a concern. You're wrong. Your entire perspective on everything that has anything to do with this is wrong. And I just showed you that in one sentence. It's amazing to watch him at work.
Yep.
So one of the other things we got going on here is Trump's he actually issued or declared a national emergency about energy production. So that's kind of fascinating. Where do we get our energy from? Well, there's the Middle East. That's always a problem. Russia has a lot of it. We're probably not going to get a lot of it from Russia. There's a lot of it, believe it or not, in South America. And then, of course, Mexico, the Gulf of Mexico. And
No, it's the
the
Gulf of
thing is,
America.
yeah, the Gulf of America. The thing is that if we are going to take the actions that he intends to take, and we want to have the leverage to enforce these actions, we have to really ramp up energy production. Energy is power, literally, and everything. The cost of everything is based on the cost of the energy required to produce it and to transport it. So the fact is that you have to have strong energy production in the country for us to have the leverage to do the things we need to do to declare our independence, America's independence from the world system. Now, does that mean we don't engage with other nations? No, that's asinine. But we engage with them as a sovereign equal, as a sovereign entity, rather than as one of a member of the Borg, the global Borg. We
The
have to
hive.
the hive mind. We have to cut our way out of the Borg, out of the hive, and become a sovereign entity once again. And we can't do it unless we have solid, dependable, ongoing energy production. And actually, from my perspective, I believe that the dismantling of America's energy capabilities was always about that, was always about subjecting us to this globalist hive mind.
100%.
So he's actually declared a national emergency to accelerate permitting of oil, gas, and power projects. Now, my friends who are environmentalists, and frankly, every one of us should be an environmentalist to a certain extent. We should all be very concerned about what's happening around us, how clean the air is, how clean the water is for our kids and grandkids, and, for ourselves too.
We
I
should be
know
good
that you, for
stewards.
instance, yeah, but you, for instance, have taught me quite a bit about clean food. We all need to be concerned about that. And the thing is that he's established this emergency, declared a national emergency to facilitate permitting, right? And of course, what most people who are paying attention to environmentalist issues, their number one concern will be, well, is it just going to be a rubber stamp? Does he mean by that there won't be a permitting process? Just somebody applies for a permit and he says, yes, go drill oil. Yes, go frack away. He doesn't seem to be stating that. And he is withdrawing the U.S. from the the Paris Climate Accord, which is based on the idea that human caused climate change is destroying the world. And of course, you've got people who've been saying since I was in middle school that using hairspray or burning things in burning garbage in your backyard, or by garbage I mean leaves and wood and stuff like that you rake up in your yard, or driving your truck to work, that's destroying the world. When I lived in the Peruvian Amazon,
I mean, cow farmers are destroying the world.
What's that?
Cow farmers are destroying the world.
Yeah, bovine flatulence.
From methane,
when I lived in the Peruvian Amazon, I literally sat in my house and watched a PBS special on how dirty the water was in the Amazon River, because people in the United States of America were driving these big, inefficient SUVs. And all of that stuff was going up in the sky, and it was all falling directly into the Amazon River.
Mm-hmm.
And the next day I was out on the river taking a boat ride, and I saw at least 4 different boat owners there in the dock as we were waiting to load our boat, working on the engines, for the boat motors. They take the cover off and they dump out the oil and the gas that they found there, because it had water in it or whatever, and they're cleaning their motors. They dumped it right into the river. But the pollution's coming from, from Iowa, where they drive SUVs. So, it's kind of the kind of asininity that Trump is bypassing, not just flat out saying, you apply for it, you get it. There are still procedures you have to follow, still rules that are laws that are applicable, but they're bypassing all of the delays and the runaround that's been going on previously. I hope I've made that clear. I kind of feel like I'm losing steam here, but the idea. Go ahead.
No, I think your point's very clear, and I think that's I've always said we have some of the best emission standards in this country of anywhere in the world. I mean, if you look at emissions from in China, I mean, China's emissions are worse than America was in the height of the Industrial Revolution.
Yes.
So if they're not going to participate in the Paris climate, then why should we? They need to send Greta Thunberg over to China and let her talk to some of their folks.
How dare you?
Yeah. I wanted to bring this up really quick. So, because we were talking about immigration. So, the other thing I saw President Trump talking about was birthright citizenship and the 14th Amendment. And so I'd like to get your take on that.
Well, I think you probably know my take on it. I've got 2 kids I adopted from Peru. And, we went through 12 years of paperwork and legal fees and traveling back and forth to Peru and, being told no repeatedly and, having government bureaucrats both in Peru and in the United States act like we were idiots and treating us like we were their redheaded stepchildren.
Hmm. And I mean, I'm pretty sure you're a legal citizen, right?
Well, yeah, my wife and I are both legal citizens, and we adopted 2 kids from Peru, and we should have just had to go through this established procedure and then bring our kids home.
Uh-huh.
And instead, we went through all sorts of insane garbage for 12 years. It was madness. But as far as birthright citizenship, do you have the 14th Amendment up right now?
No.
Okay. Well, you know what it says, though, and you know the context for why it was written. A lot of people don't. The 14th Amendment was one of the amendments written at the end of the Civil War, and that made the freed slaves into full citizens, gave them the right to vote, and protected their rights as human beings. Basically said the Constitution applies to these people as well. And what it said was,
can I just read the quote here? So just like you said, in the aftermath of the Civil War, Congress ratified the 14th Amendment in July 1868. The amendment assured citizenship for all, including Black people. Quote, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. The 14th Amendment says no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States. But the 14th Amendment didn't always translate to everyone being afforded birthright citizenship. For example, it
All right,
wasn't until 19.
hang on.
Oh,
Let's
sorry.
actually talk for a second. So, what is the phrase right after born in the United States?
Uh,
And
all
subject to
persons, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof.
subject to the jurisdiction thereof. This was written to make slaves and their children citizens. That was the intent. That was
Right.
the context. That was the purpose. Okay. Someone who comes over to the United States and has a baby is not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States because they are not a U.S. citizen.
Right.
So, not subject to the jurisdiction thereof. You are disqualified. We're done here. There's nothing else to discuss.
And it's just like I've heard so many people talking about the illegals that are in the United States, and they're like, oh, they deserve a trial, and I'm like, no, they have no rights under the Constitution. They're not a citizen.
No,
That's the difference.
no, they have no right to require that I fund their process.
Right.
The government exists to secure the natural rights of the citizens of this nation. That's it.
Yep.
Now, that doesn't mean that I think that if someone comes into this country, that they should be, we should be able to kill them with impunity. They're still human beings. But that also means that the rights, the civil protections that we have for our rights doesn't exist for them. They don't have the liberties that we have, and they shouldn't. Right. You know that I've lived abroad for years. I lived in South America. I lived in Peru. I didn't have a right to vote there. I didn't. Right. I never would have asked for the right to vote. Now, there were a couple of times I watched the elections and I thought, oh my God, I wouldn't have voted for that guy. But it was never a question of whether I had the right to vote. I certainly never went and tried to register to vote or to cast a ballot. I didn't have a right to own land. Mm-hmm. But there were ways that I could, there were organizations that I could work through, and I could have bought a house while I lived down there. But it wouldn't actually belong to me. It would belong to like the consortium or the missions agency or whatever. And that's fine. But that's their country. They get to make their own laws.
Right.
And the 14th Amendment does not say if you happen to be pregnant when you get off the plane in the United States and then you have a baby during your 3-day weekend in the United States, your baby is now American. That is not what it says. Mm-hmm. It says born here and subject to the jurisdiction of our government. It's very simple. It's very straightforward. And the fact that people have been playing with it for so long and pretending like it says something it doesn't, it's just a matter of their corruption. It's that simple.
It is. And immigration is just a big old mess that needs, just burn to the ground and start from the beginning.
Well, I mean, it's part of the federal government. It pretty much applies to the whole thing. But of course, I am pro. I don't want to say I'm pro immigration. I am pro effective immigration that is good for the United States. Right. So I brought my 2 kids here. I am training my kids. I'm raising my kids to be great Americans. Hadassah is an honor student. She's in Air Force Junior ROTC in high school. She's about to graduate high school. She's joining the Air Force. She wants to serve the United States of America. They're 18 years old. She voted this year the first time in 24. She's very proud to do it.
She's awesome too, by the way.
She is. She is an amazing young lady, and I'm very proud to be her dad.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I didn't bring them here. And by the way, I haven't tried to take away their culture either. Yeah. I'm very proud of their culture.
Oh, be proud of where you're from.
Yeah. And we brought Teo, the lady who took care of them while we were separated. She's here right now. She's here on a tourist visa, hanging out. And we regularly, do our best to go there or bring her here. And it's not like I told her she had to act like she was a Scots-Irishman, like I am. It's not relevant. What's relevant is she's my daughter and she's an American. And, that's the thing. but
Yep.
she doesn't. People don't get to come here and decide that they're going to establish a whole nother nation inside our nation. They need to come here and become Americans. That doesn't mean
Hmm.
they lose the flavor of where they came from. I wear a kilt every now and then. Don't tell anybody, but I will wear a kilt, and every now and then I'll strap that sword on my back and put my kilt on, and stomp around smoking a pipe. And I just something I do. I go to a festival or whatever.
Uh-huh.
But not about losing the flavor where you came from. It's about understanding what America is, and America is all about the government securing the natural rights of the citizens. That's what it's here for.
Yep. So the
So,
other going into this birthright citizenship, I see a key case in history. In 1898, when the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that Wong Kim Ark, born in San Francisco to Chinese immigrants, was a U.S. citizen because he was born in the States. And the federal government had tried to deny him reentry into the country after a trip abroad on grounds that he wasn't a citizen under the Chinese Exclusion Act. But then it says some have argued that the 1898 case clearly applied to children born of parents who are both legal immigrants to America, but that it's less clear that it would apply to children born to parents without legal status. And it says this is the leading case, and in fact, the only case. And proponents of immigration restrictions have argued that the words, just like we said a minute ago, subject to the jurisdiction thereof, allows the U.S. to deny citizenship to babies born to those in the country illegally. And that was some of the language that Trump used in 23
yeah.
when his aim to end birthright citizenship.
I would actually go so far as to say that someone who is not a citizen is not subject to the jurisdiction of the country.
Right.
Now, if you're here legally, you're on a green card, you're on an H-1B visa or whatever, you have attained permission to enter the country. That's great. That's the right way to do it. Teo is here visiting us right now. She's on a tourist visa. She has entered the country legally. That's wonderful. She is not subject to the jurisdiction of U.S. laws. Now, does that mean if she goes out tomorrow and murders somebody, which is kind of laughable, if she goes out tomorrow, she'd probably murder me, if anybody. But
Uh-huh.
if she were to murder someone, that she wouldn't go to jail? Well, no, that's not what it means. What it means is she doesn't pay taxes here. She's not required to do this, that, and the other like Americans are. She also can't get a driver's license here. Of course, we allow that. She could get a driver's license if she were here on a long-term visa, but she's here on a tourist visa. Anyway, the point is that visitors who come legally are still visitors. They are not subject to our jurisdiction, right? They don't have American passports. They can't. They don't. They're not subject to U.S. jurisdiction. But it's doubly true. It's so obvious that it's painful that people who are here illegally are not subject to U.S. jurisdiction, because if they were subject to U.S. jurisdiction, why are they here illegally? You get what I'm saying?
Yep.
Because how are you subject to U.S. jurisdiction if it's illegal for you to be here? So anyway, I guess I've beaten that dead horse, and I think I actually contradicted myself at least once. But the idea is that is the key phrase. Just because you have a baby in the U.S. doesn't mean that baby's an American. And if you don't mind, I think we got another minute or two. I wanted to look back at this emergency, this national energy emergency order, and
National energy emergency.
we talked about maximizing energy production, withdrawing from the Paris Accord. So the Biden administration actually established targets for electric vehicle production, and also for wind lease, offshore wind lease, and freezing liquefied natural gas exports. Basically, just really hobbling the U.S. energy industry.
Yeah.
And Trump has revoked all of that.
And in addition to that, he issued an executive order to require all federal agencies within 30 days to submit to the White House Office of Management and Budget their plans to eliminate regulations and rules deemed burdensome to domestic energy production and consumption.
Right. Beautiful. Beautiful. And as a national security guy, this one hit home. He said, we're going to fill up our strategic reserves right to the top.
Yep.
In case you don't know this, Joe Biden depleted our U.S. petroleum strategic reserves, just depleted it. And what is that? Well, if we have an emergency, if we need to go to war, if we can't import petroleum, somebody, creates an embargo against us, we have some sort of a natural disaster, whatever. That means that we have the petroleum that we need to continue to function and to be a country. And he says, Donald Trump says, we are going to fill our strategic reserves up again right to the top and export American energy all over the world. Look, folks, this is the stuff I was looking to have happen in 2017. Mm-hmm. I have been disappointed for 8 years. And you'll have to excuse me if I get a little bit excited about what we're doing here. And of course, being who I am, I can't help but be a little bit leery of the excitement because, you got people talking about rescinding or amending the Constitution so Donald Trump can have a third term, and talking about a Trump dynasty and all that stuff. Look, let's make sure the man does his job for the next 4 years. Let's support him, encourage him, and encourage our Congress members, our Congress critters to support the constitutional efforts that he is making to dismantle corrupt government and to restore the republic, right? But let's not do any of this junk where we're trying to establish a long-term reign of Donald Trump. He's getting older. He's worked his behind off for us. He is working his behind off. He will continue to do so for the next 4 years. Let's be grateful. Let's raise up a new generation to come in behind him. Not a new generation of Trumps, just a new generation of Americans, whatever their last name might be. There's a Trump or two along the way. That's great. But we're not looking to this family to bear our national burden, forever. That's the way that you build monarchies, and you end up in tyranny. And it's not good for them either. It's not what they want, I don't believe. I think they want liberty just like the rest of us do. So what we need to do is we, the people, need to rise up. We need to raise up our kids and train them to pick up the burden and run with it. And I'm really grateful for Mr. Trump dismantling parts of the burden and, working hard to build a system that works and that actually does what government's supposed to do. But it's not all on his shoulders. We gotta get under this burden with it. And that doesn't mean necessarily letting him be president for a third term or making sure that one of his kids is the president. That's not part of the deal.
I think, of course, wouldn't say that my opinion is fully formed, but J.D. Vance is a very bright person.
Yeah, and he'll be in a position to run for president in 4 years, and maybe we can squeeze 8 years out of that fellow. I don't know, these Appalachians. What do you think about them?
I don't know.
Again, to our listeners, Todd and I are both from West Virginia. So anyway, of course, he's a Marine too. So, gosh, my old man was a Marine. I still love him. But we have some great options going forward. Right now, what we need to do is focus on making sure that these tasks are taken care of. And frankly, I'm very happy to see what's going on right now, and I'm grateful for it. Grateful for Mr. Trump and to Mr. Trump, but more to the people who are around him, because I don't think he's changed. What I think is the people he surrounded himself with has changed. And
absolutely.
So he's able to do the things he needs to do. And I'm very happy about that and grateful for it. And I'm about all talked out tonight.
I certainly would say that Mr. Trump, for his age, that guy is a machine. I really don't know how he does what he does.
Apparently, it's Diet Coke.
Yeah, I guess.
All right. Thanks for putting up with me, Todd. Thanks to GCD. Thanks, Sam. And let's keep praying for Paul, okay?
Absolutely. And we'd just like to ask all of our listeners to please pray for Paul, and we would appreciate that very much. And thank you for tuning in and listening to us. And hopefully, we can get some social media tie-ins here in the very near future where people can leave comments and questions and, make fun of us, whatever you want to do.
Outstanding. I
Yep.
thrive on being made fun of, as you know.
Yep.
All right. Y'all take care. Thanks for putting up with.
Thank you, guys. See you next week.